Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is my October webinar. For those of you from outside the college, what you may not know is that monthly, because we're distributed across the state, present what's happening in the college to our employees through a webinar format. Usually, it's Mitch Moser sitting in an undisclosed location. So this is a little different venue, but we're so thrilled to have you here this morning. This is a really incredible 48 hours in the life of the college and the university. Last night we celebrated our scholarship donors and recipients in a lovely event around a campfire. Those of you who weren't there will have some who were there, but we had a lovely venue over in the Ohio Union. Don't know how we got the open burn permits over there, but it was really quite nice. And so today we'll continue with a variety of different activities, starting with you being subjected to me for the next few minutes, but leading to an opportunity for you all to talk to us on so many different aspects. Several of you will have the opportunity to join various events around the campus here through the day as we celebrate homecoming. And of course, tomorrow we'll be back here for our Fall Fest annual homecoming tailgate for the college. And then I hope most of you join us in welcoming Rutgers and the Scarlet Knights to the Ohio Stadium in a most unfriendly fashion. That will be our aspiration. Happy to welcome also those of you around the state, our colleagues up at Worcester, at our county offices, the folks at our outlying research and extension centers are all joining today through YouTube. So we're using the same sorts of technologies today that we use in those monthly events. But here on campus, in addition to alums who we welcome back to campus, we've got great representation from a whole raft of our advisory committees, the Vice President's Advisory Committee, our Volunteer Campaign Advisory Committee is here, and both the OARDC and OSU Extension Advisory Committees are here. We'll all get a chance in the sessions later this morning to become acquainted. You know, I'm 2 years in, 2 weeks from being 2 years old, about ready to start junior year is another way that I've been thinking about it. Although here at Ohio State, we tend to say first year, second year, third year. Not entirely sure, some assembly recorded here. Not entirely sure, what that means that our students define themselves by years. Maybe it gives them a less definite endpoint in their college career, but I'm about to become a third year for the third time. As most of you know, I was a student here once upon a time, and that was a millennium ago. Only part of a millennium ago, I was a county-based educator, 4-H down in Claremont County for 3 years. And so this truly is my third try at being a third year at the Ohio State University and in the college. For much of this past year, we have really been focused on a lot of conversations, conversations that identify where we are today, reflect on how we got to this point, but most importantly, take us toward the future. And I think everyone in this room at some point or other in the last year has had the opportunity to hear me talk about the fact that we're planning, we're talking, we're discussing. And so what I hope to provide to you today, before we finish up this morning, is some reflection on having had many of those conversations, what's next? What are we going to do as a college? And we'll see how you react to some of these ideas. There we go. Well, let me start by just reflecting on a few of the points of pride of this last year. It's really been an exceptional year in the life of the college. Now, our two main products, if you think about us from a business perspective, our two main products are new knowledge and educating people with that new knowledge. This slide actually reflects on the hybrid of those, a student explaining her research to someone who isn't familiar with that particular discipline. But think about that as we go through the morning and talk about directions that we may head. You know, we're in the business of changing the future. I've taken to describing the job of a dean as being one of the pilots of the plane that's taken us to the future. And what we're looking at is building that future through new ideas and through the educational process. And for us, a land-grant university, the educational process takes place in the college, in the classrooms, but also very much in classrooms that are outside the walls here on the campus. Just a couple of months into this 2015 academic year, we've done a snapshot of enrollment, and again, for another year, our enrollments continue to increase. Undergraduate enrollments in the college are up over 6%. In fact, ATI at Worcester is up over 9% as part of that increase in undergraduate enrollments. We have taught this year 700 students. We've grown nearly 100 students in our ATI programs over the past 2 years. Represents a real gain, real opportunities. Graduate enrollment is up over 3% this year. Now, student recruitment is a team sport, folks. It takes dedicated faculty and staff. It takes students who believe in the product they're getting while they're here because they talk to prospective students. It takes all of you, friends of the college and alumni, who have a sense of what you're trying to accomplish and can convey this is a great place to come and do your education. In addition to students, our employee base continues to change. Over the past 12 months, we've added 12 new tenure-track faculty. We've added an additional tenure-track faculty member who works in our extension operations. We have 146 new staff, 13 of whom are extension educators out in the state. So we continue to really grow. One of the things that I really rejoice at is the fact that as we bring in those new faculty, not only do we bring in a diversity of new ideas, half of those new faculty are women, which actually creates an increasing balance in too frequently been a male-dominated set of fields. Last night I mentioned we celebrated philanthropy. We celebrated $1.823 million in scholarships given by the college from money that you have provided to us through endowments and other scholarship mechanisms out to our students. And that leverages a pool of over $4 million in other scholarship support that our students get through the university and other sources, everything from student athletes to leadership scholarships. And so the sum total is that with your help, we are making a dent in the issue of affordability of college for our students. We're helping them achieve their dreams. We're helping grow that next generation of excellence. And our students are successful. You can see the metric here. This is from last year. We're just now doing the survey of graduates from 2015 to see what their 6-month out landing place looks like. But our students get jobs. Over 92% of our students report being either continuing their education or in their first job within 6 months of graduation. And that has been a real point of pride for us. Now, that success comes from a variety of different factors. Clearly, starting point is great education within the classroom. And it's not just book learning. We believe in hands-on education. And so it's very, very important, just as in 4-H we learn by doing, give those opportunities wherever possible to our students through their classroom experiences. But as I said, it's more than just the classroom, it's excellent advising. We have faculty and staff who are dedicated to mentoring students as they move through their educational process. And it's a wealth of co-curricular opportunities. Over 95% of our graduating seniors have had at least one internship, many of them multiple internships. 100% of our graduating seniors have had some culminating experience, either that internship or a capstone course experience where they've had to work with teams on real-world problems. Our students leave the university understanding the real world. The university average for internship participation is about a third of the students. So we are exceptionally more aggressive in having that be part of our students' portfolio than the rest of the university. More than 40% of our students have had an international experience. The university average is 22%. Again, a focus on taking young people out, giving them new experiences that they then take into their careers. And it does, in fact, make a huge difference. This is a picture from up at ATI. Dale Leppo, who is a staunch supporter, is describing to Chancellor John Kerry, Chancellor of the Board of Regents, the fact that his workforce is dependent upon the pipeline of internships from our students. You know, he has been a great supporter of internship opportunities, and over 10% of his workforce in Northeast Ohio actually derives directly from the pipeline of Ohio State ATI interns working in his company and then coming back to be his employees. So it just is a perfect example of the kind of connectivity that we have here. Just 2 weeks ago, in this building and over in Ag Admin, across the corner here, we had a record 109 companies here looking at our students. Career fair, construction systems over in the area, the ag field so broadly defined, as you all know, here in this building. There were, so 109 companies is a record. That led to more than 300 on-campus interviews that we could document over the 2-day period that those folks were around. There were over 200 recruiters here representing those 109 companies. A point of pride, 80 of those recruiters were our graduates. And so folks in your businesses are coming back here to find the next generation of employees for their companies because they understand the kind of product that they're recruiting. Now, there's just one problem with our students. No, you're probably surprised to hear me say there's only one problem with our students. One problem with our students is that they want to stay in Ohio. 75% of graduates' first jobs are here in Ohio. Now, when I'm speaking to the governor's office, that's another point of pride. We are stemming brain drain. We are providing qualified employees back to Ohio businesses that will stimulate further economic success in Ohio. But when we have some of these multinational companies come in, we have trouble sometimes recruiting our best and brightest because those kids want to stay close to home. It's a good problem to have, but it's something that we can continue to work on, and addressing it by getting them to go other places for their internships, to continue that international exposure, I think ways that we actually can go about encouraging some of those folks to take on leadership roles in some of these amazing companies. I mentioned our student engagement in international, but as proud as I am of that, we have scores of faculty and staff who are internationally recognized and active. I've put up here just the Norman Borlaug Scholar point, simply because the World Food Prize is going on right now in Des Moines, and so it's just a good touch point. We host scholars from around the world. We are a destination for international scholars. We go around the world. 2 years ago, we celebrated 50 years of a relationship with Punjab Agricultural University in India. Just a month ago, I was in Brazil to celebrate the 50th anniversary of a relationship of our college with the University of São Paulo's agricultural campus in Piracicaba. Great event. They are 50 years later so graciously grateful for the impact that we had on agricultural education in Brazil. And the thing that was really amazing is we had a little reception for alumni. On their faculty, either emeritus or still current faculty, there are more than 50 alums of this college alone. That's the kind of relationship we developed. We became the place where and it was so delightful to talk to some of the folks who had studied here back in the early 70s, late 60s and early 70s, because we could talk about professors in common. They remembered some of the folks that I knew at that time, including a few that I had classes from. And so, just the points of connection are absolutely amazing. While we were down there in Brazil, we actually had an opportunity with the provost and with the mayor of the city of Columbus to open Ohio State Gateway in Brazil, in São Paulo proper. Ohio State now has formal gateways, formal portals with Ohio State employees in Brazil, India, China. Arguably, three of the most important food countries in the world. They didn't plan it that way, that it really was something that could facilitate our international presence, but it creates an incredible opportunity for us to be able to take advantage of that Ohio State investment to really advance issues of agriculture, food, and environmental sciences. Now, switch gears here a little bit, but there is a connection. All of these things I'm talking about, student education, international opportunities, all take money. And one of the things that we have done very, very well, and my hat is off to our advancement team, last year, this is the 2014-2015 fiscal year, our advancement team helped us raise a record amount of money for this college, $21.5 million. The most money in a single year that the college has ever raised. Now, we have goals, we have aspirations. At the end of the decade, that should be $30 million a year. That's going to take some work. But let me tell you, and a couple of our committees will talk a little bit this afternoon about the finances of the college. There really are only three ways we have control of our funds for the future. There are only really three things that are in our power to control. One of them is tuition dollars and the state investment that comes with students. If we increase the number of students and increase the number of degrees, we can increase our revenue from tuition. The second is grants and contracts. That's the support that we ask our faculty and staff to pursue for their research endeavors. That's in our control. We're very, very competitive on a national and international scale, but we need to be even more competitive. We need to look at the private sector and research and development from companies as a source of funding. We need to become creative, we need to become agile, we need to become entrepreneurial as we move ahead. And then the third way is through philanthropy. And that celebration of in excess of $1.8 million in scholarships last night is testament to the fact that there are people out there, people like you, people like our many, many scholarship donors who believe strongly in the mission and are willing to invest. And so having teams that work collectively on all of these, increasing our student body and their success, increasing our research portfolio, and looking for philanthropic donations is really exactly how we have to move to the future. Now, more than 8,000 individuals contributed to that $21.5 million last year. I think that's testament to the amazing support we have. Next week, a number of us will actually be down in the southeast part of the state. Oma Rausch left her estate the single largest gift ever obtained by this college, $7 million. That $7 million is going to be placed in an endowment, and with that funding, we will be able to offer full ride scholarships to students from Gallia, Jackson, and Meigs County, Ohio. They can go to ATI, they can come here to Columbus and be undergrads or graduate students. So we have a lot of flexibility. So on Tuesday of next week, we're going to go down to the Bob Evans home farm in Gallia County outside of Rio Grande, and we're going to talk to superintendents, guidance counselors, county commissioners, and other elected officials, and help them understand the opportunities that students can gain from being part of our college, the jobs that await, careers that await graduates in our disciplines. It's, you could, way of looking at this, say, well, only 3 counties. The other way to look at this is to say 3 counties where we have very few students attending. There's an opportunity here, best and brightest, bring them here and help them be successful. Earlier in the summer, we celebrated the gift of Geraldine and Arthur Winfo, a couple down in Pickaway County, who left their family farm to us. And we sold that farm. Actually, we're able to sell it to the individuals who had been farming it for the Winfos for many years. And we got $2.5 million from that gift that is going into creating modern learning environments for our students. Those are the kinds of things that make a difference. Those are the kinds of things that add up to really move the needle for us. This shot on the screen here is actually from Farm Science Review. We announced our new, read it here, the Center for Cooperative Business and Community Education and Development. A brand new center. We've hired a faculty member who will be starting in a few months here in our Farm Income Enhancement Chair, another charitable gift that comes from donors across the state, to oversee this center, to work with the state, region, and nation co-op on that very vibrant business model. Until we started these conversations, I had no idea how important this business model, how relevant still this model is in agriculture and beyond. And so nearly $750,000 have been donated by a variety of partners to get this center off the ground. Yet another example of the way that generosity has an impact on our programs. Just in this past year, our researchers have actually donated more than $37 million of competitive grants and contracts that come from outside. I like to say the good thing about research in Ohio is that we're spending Michigan's money. Because especially at the federal level, we get more than our share of competitive grants relative to a lot of other states. Our faculty are very, very competitive. So, particularly Michigan, but, I could have said Massachusetts or Minnesota, but just seems something fun about saying it's Michigan's money. But the fact is that our faculty continue to be very, very aggressive and very, very successful. We could spend the rest of the hour talking about all the things they do, but everything from hypoallergenic latex from new sources that will reduce latex allergies in things like surgical situations. New approaches to animal and plant disease. The porcine epidemic, diarrhea virus has been a huge problem in animal agriculture here, and our folks up at Worcester at the Food Animal Health Research Program are working on that. The impact of dam removals. You've noticed a little change if you haven't been back on campus for a while. The Olentangy looks a bit different than it once did. And we've actually got faculty members who are actively researching what happens to the ecology of the river when you make those kinds of changes. So it's just really, truly all over the map. Well, it's been a year of change at Ohio State broadly as well. Here's Patty House, one of our extension educators at the state fair, talking to a very important couple. President Michael Drake and his wife Brenda Drake joined us at State Fair. President Drake started in late June. A year of change from Gordon Gee through Joe Aludo. As Archie Griffin liked to say, Ohio State's only two-time interim president and so Joe handed off the reins in late June to President Drake. He arrived in late June. By the end of July, he had already been on our Worcester campus. First off-site visit that he took within the Ohio State system was to our campus in Worcester. Of course, the students weren't there, so he's now scheduling a trip back. But in addition to the visit to Worcester, he was at the state fair. He came to the Ag Cultivating a Cure event and met with ag leaders from across the state. He was at the Farm Science Review and gave a presentation. He will be joining us at the Extension Annual Conference on December 11th to speak to the entire college faculty and staff over in the Ohio Union. So he has engaged with the college. I would argue that of academic colleges, it's quite possible that our college has had more of his focus time than any other college, and I think that's a good thing. As I'm getting to know him, his number one issue as president is access to education. He is fascinated with ATI and its potential. You know, we've got a very selective admission here on the Columbus campus. This year's freshman class has an average ACT of 29. It's 28.8, but just like U.S. News and World Report, we round up. Our average ACT on the Worcester campus at ATI is about 20.5. Worcester and the other regional campuses truly represent the land-grant access to education. They are a portal for students in Ohio to come into the Ohio State system and pursue education. And so the President's partnership in thinking about access and how we ensure that we have that access will be critical. Another priority is diversity. Diversity in our student body, diversity in student experience. So the experiential co-curricular things that I talked about earlier are absolutely critical. Diversity in our faculty and staff to better frame the world that our students will need to succeed in, that they'll need to excel in when they leave our walls. And he's extremely interested in the areas of food security, another thing that bodes very well for us. He's interested in the food system. And so we've got a window to have his attention. You know, he is interested both in the question of how do we feed 9 billion people by 2050 around the world, and the equally important question of how do we feed 2 million hungry Ohioans by next year. And so he really sees the scope of opportunities here. There we go. Well, happy birthday to us. Our 100th anniversary of Extension nationally is winding to a close. Back in May was the actual signing date of the Smith-Lever Act back in 1914. We celebrated that nationally. We've been celebrating across the state at county fairs and beyond all year long. You know, cooperative extension, don't know about you, it's in my DNA. You know, I got my start in 4-H, cooperative extension. Learned public speaking. A kid about this tall. Bicycle safety, the Union County Courthouse, 10 years old. Met my wife at a county fair. Can't ask for better than that. Although a lot of 4-H parents are a little uncomfortable when I tell 4-Hers that story. You know, served as a county extension agent myself between my master's and PhD, and have had the pride of leading extension in 2 great land-grant universities. You know, this is what we're all about, folks. This is taking the full knowledge of the university to the people who need it most. 100 years old, another way of thinking about this is, okay, happy birthday, so what's next? Here in Ohio, we've actually been engaged for much of the past year in the Vice President's conversation on the future of extension, a futuring exercise to really look at the issues that face Ohioans, not the issues that face us as a system. What are the issues that face Ohioans into the future? We've aggregated these. We have a number of thought pieces. The team that's leading this is now working, will be continuing to work with many of you who've helped so far, but also with our own employees as we move ahead to say, given the issues we've identified, where's the sweet spot for OSU Extension for the future? Where do we actually move to be transformational for the next century? Now, there'll be a lot of changes. You know, the world is different. Information is everywhere. In fact, misinformation is everywhere. I would argue that one of our roles remains to be a trusted agent, a trusted source of information. We'll do that under new leadership. Keith, stand up for a second, would you? Keith Smith, all of you know, our extension director for when he retires at the end of June next year, the past 23 years in leadership of OSU Extension, capping a 35-year career. Just an exceptional contribution. And as I've often said with following a legend like Bobby Moser, I'm not Bobby's replacement. There is no replacement for Bobby Moser. I'm just the next person in the sequence. We'll look for the next leader in the sequence with OSU Extension, and that process will start before the holidays. We're working on search committee and identifying a search firm that will help us turn over rock nationally to find the right next leader to take us to that next step. But as with so many other things I've talked about, everything we talk about doing is built on the successes of the past and the contributions of those who've come before. And so, Keith, thank you so much for what you've done for the system. Okay, so ongoing conversation. This is one of our change conversations. What is the future? What's our second century? How do we remain transformational? Stay tuned, but more importantly, stay engaged. Those of you who are watching from county offices, we need your participation on December 10th at the annual conference. That day is committed to the future of Extension. And so we look for your input and active participation. Another important conversation that's been going on is around our livestock facilities and management plans. Animal agriculture is an incredibly important part of Ohio agriculture. And animal science remains the single biggest major in the college. Now, Nathan, I'm gonna play on you. I'm gonna riff on your presentation last night. Nathan Loizo, one of our campaign committee members, was one of the speakers last night at the celebration of scholarships, and he pointed out that he has developed a successful career in agribusiness as a result of his change in choice as a student from wanting to be a veterinarian, finding that a C in chemistry was just the thing that he's so proud of in hindsight, but discovering that he needed to pivot a little bit and think about a different approach. And it's a perfect example. We draw students into animal science because there is a real magnetism about working with animals. And then those students who can succeed and go on to a career as a professor, as a veterinarian, something else in the animal world, do so. But a lot of those animal science students find very, very successful careers down other pathways. And so we have had a huge investment in animals within the college. And so I impaneled a committee. Dave Benfield, our associate director from OARDC, agreed to chair that, but hard work from people across the college who are associated, staff and faculty who are associated with our animal portfolio. They've provided a series of recommendations, you can find that on our college's website, that give us a blueprint for change. Just to summarize some of the things, this is another one of these things I've been talking about. I'm going to get, what are we doing about this? In Columbus, we will pivot from a focus at Don Scott to to a focus at the Waterman Farms. This follows their recommendation. We will continue to use Don Scott for largely beef and grazing related work, teaching and research, but we will focus on creating an equine environment, creating an arena for multiple use purposes, and creating a multi-species animal facility where we can teach the best practices of animal care, physiology, reproduction, marketing, etc. And so we will pivot on the basis of this report from that Don Scott focus to a Waterman focus. And as you'll see momentarily, this is part of our intent to make Waterman an innovation hub of this college. If you think about our Worcester portfolio, sorry, I've got my notes in a variety of different formats here. That's what happens when you do it at 5 in the morning. Our Worcester focus will largely be on consolidating facilities. There, because of the historical nature of OARDC and ATI as independent operations focused on research, together on undergraduate education, we have had duplication of facilities. And so we will do what our aspirational peers do. We will create modern facilities that allow us to combine the research and teaching capacity on our Worcester campus. So I think through the recommendations of this group, and there are many, many recommendations, there's going to be a lot of sequencing that has to be done, a good bit of fundraising that has to be done, but we will use those recommendations to actually guide how we look in the future. It's important to say that all of this, every step of the way, is driven by conversation with stakeholders and a focus on the program that we want to operate. This is not the field of dreams, folks. It's not build it and they will come. It's an identification of what we want to do with our future and what do we need to accomplish that future. A second really critical, very creative conversation was around the future of ATI. ATI is the nation, for those of you who don't know, Agricultural Technical Institute, founded in the early 70s. I think it was actually established by the state in 69. First graduating class was 72. My brother's an alum from 79. I have long relationship with ATI. It actually, the presence of that 2-year degree option in the college was one of the tipping points for me deciding to return to Ohio State. Because I firmly believe that we need to offer opportunity and option for our students. It is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And so ATI remains the leading institution in the nation for the conferring of 2-year degrees in food and agriculture. That is a position that we've held for most of the past decade. A true point of pride. We're better than anyone else in the nation at graduating students with 2-year credentials. Now, about 50% of those go directly into the workforce with technical skills. The remaining 50% now pursue a 4-year degree, most of them with us, but we give them the opportunity to move wherever. It is truly a great bright spot in the college and the university. I've already talked to you a little bit about President Drake's thoughts about this, but it's something that we really have to ensure has legs to move to the future. So I asked another group, this was sponsored by Linda Martin and Jim Kinder. We had external facilitation to help us with this, because I asked them to be brave and to be visionary and to make recommendations that might actually scare us a little bit. This report is also available on our website. Take a look at it. But in a nutshell, I think it will move us to higher levels. Talked about the increase in enrollment that we've had. My goal for ATI is to see us back at 1,000 students. There's a marketplace for those students. We have the capacity to teach that number. We need to be aggressively moving to help young people understand that this is a real opportunity for them. This can be a destination, that Worcester is not a consolation prize, it is a destination to start your education, start your career pathway. Gary Strakwadine, our Chair of Agricultural Communications, Education, and Leadership, is going to serve as the lead person in implementation. He'll work closely with Jim and Linda because of the nature of all of the academic workings, but I've asked Gary to take on the process of actually looking at that. And I think over the next year, the committee actually set an incredibly aggressive timeline for any of these changes. Sorry, committee, but an impossibly aggressive timeline in some cases. But the fact is, there is a will to look at this and a will to change. The people in that committee, many of them were directly affected by the recommendations they were making. It's a brave document to say, you need to look at some of these issues and really move ahead aggressively. Now, one little aside here, this ATI conversation, the livestock conversation I talked about in bringing operations together at the Worcester campus has led us to the point in time where we're looking at another task force that has just come together this week. Dave Benfield has graciously, he didn't learn his lesson on the animal side, so he's graciously stepped up to lead this endeavor as well. But we've actually put together a small team to look at the question, how do we run Worcester as a single Ohio State campus? It has been two co-located operations for largely historical and budgetary flow reasons over the years. They have come together in many, many ways, and now we need to complete that job. It's going to be a tough lift because a lot of the easy stuff is already done, and we've got a lot of the more difficult things that we still have to deal with. But in order to be effective and efficient, we need to turn that into a comprehensive campus that has the full academic portfolio of undergraduate education through to graduate education, teaching and outreach through to excellence in research. And we can do that by really focusing on this. So I'm excited about yet another endeavor that we've put into place. Okay. The college is moving across the river. April Fools. But not. You've heard that. I heard that was, I sat down with Gordon Gee to talk about this job, and he drew me a little picture, pulled out one of his little graph paper, sheets of paper, and it's an abstract drawing. It could be in the Picasso exhibit that the Wexners have over in the Arts Center right now. I should get him to sign it sometime because I'm sure it'll be worth money someday. The fact is, it was very representational. It said there's going to be an opportunity. Our master planning process at the university indicates there will be development of academic space on the east side of the Olentangy. Right now it looks kind of like St. John Arena and French Fieldhouse to me, but that spot north of the stadium is slated to eventually become academic space that increases the footprint and reach of the Columbus campus. And the notion from the now nearly a decade-old master plan produced by a consulting company named Sasaki was that the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences would largely abandon this footprint, which for future reference in this talk we now call the Midwest campus. West Campus is over there. This is the Midwest campus, and that's the main campus. We would largely empty out this area and move into that new space. In fact, the representation in the master plan shows little fields of waving wheat and things like that growing between the buildings. Let's not even go there in terms of all our student body. Waving fields of wheat in the middle of an urban campus is probably a non-starter for many reasons. Well, we asked Sasaki to come back and focus on us. They knew the campus, they planned. So we asked them to come back and spend time really delving into us. And just as I've talked about with the livestock facilities and with ATI, we started from program. What do we aspire to be? What are our core attributes and beliefs? It's a big lift. Our college is responsible for about 320 buildings. 1/3 of the university's facility portfolio is in our college. And it's not the best. We have a lot of buildings that are in need of maintenance, and this happens in organizations like this. This is unfortunately sort of the public university mantra across the nation, that you can get money to build a new building, but you can't get money to maintain a building once it's built. And so, we've got some very good facilities. This is an incredible building. The Parker Food Science and Technology building is one of our best buildings. Actually, many of our research facilities up at Worcester, despite the fact that many of them are old, are in excellent condition. So we have pockets of high quality space, but we have pockets of very poor quality space. Now I'm going to say this, and the folks in my college have heard me say it before, but many of you on the advisory committees, some of you have very fond memories of Plum Hall. But the fact is, in one of my earliest days, I went to a facilities meeting and said, I don't know why we don't tear down Plum Hall. And a sage old dude on the physical planning and real estate staff said, Dean, it was condemned when you were a student here. We just didn't do anything about it. Well, the fact is that we go all the way from the Plum Halls to a building like this, and we have to deal with that. So having a master plan, having a sense of how to drive this process is the only way that we can succeed thinking about the kind of facilities we need. If we want to be the world's leader in educating students, if we want to be the place people aspire to come to engage in outreach, if we want to have the best researchers in the world, we have to have a physical plan that supports that. And so it's a really critical element. So here's the takeaway on buildings. The master plan, we're still waiting on the final document. We've had a presentation to the faculty and staff by Sasaki back in the summer. We're still waiting on their final document, so the various advisory committees will see this when we have it available. But let me just summarize a few key facts that I know will be the case. We are committed to a two-campus college. The Worcester campus is a fundamental part of who we are. And so all other things, we will have a major presence here in Columbus, and we will have a major presence in Worcester. The outlying research stations are essential to our mission. We can do work there that is geographically limited in scope. Our hort crop science folks could do radish research over at Waterman, but that's not a muck soil like they have up in Celeryville. We've got to be in the places where we're replicating with our research the needs of our stakeholders, and so those facilities are necessary. We will be part of the Ohio State development, that North Academic Core east of the river. Our college will play in that. It will largely be through the discovery themes, and I'll talk about those just briefly. I'm doing my professorial best to use up all the time so there's no time for questions. But there's just a lot to talk about. Sorry, I just get so engaged with the opportunities. So we will be part of that move across the river, but west of the river remains key to our success. Waterman is a key asset. And we have to move from a philosophy of how do we protect Waterman against development by others to how do we use Waterman as an innovation hub for this college and for the university. So that will absolutely be part of our solution set. And this deep dive into our aspirations clearly shows us that the Midwest campus is essential to our future. And it's particularly essential in the areas of food and animals. The connection to the veterinary college is key. They're expanding the hospital facilities. They want to partner on the use of animals. You go past the vet school and you're right down to the health sciences. Veterinary med is one of 7 of the health science colleges here on this campus, one of the nation's most comprehensive campuses from disciplinary perspective. Our food portfolio is directly tied to that med school presence. And so it makes huge sense for us to remain as part of this Midwest campus, but we cannot let the opportunity of new development north of the stadium go by, and we cannot abandon to someone else's decision process the asset that Waterman Farm. And so what we propose to create is essentially a main street from the college that is anchored in the west by Waterman, in the east by the Discovery Team's process and buildings. You know, we've looked at this a million different ways. We actually think that one really important way of characterizing this is the sustainability core of The Ohio State University. There's nothing more fundamental to society than food and water and how we produce and deliver that. And that's what we do, folks. We have the market cornered on sustainability in all that we do. And it's sustainability in a triple bottom line way. It is social sustainability, economic sustainability, environmental sustainability. They all have to work together. And we are in the natural position to do that. And our facilities plan has really put an exclamation on. I'm going to have to talk fast, but there are several things I just have to tell you. So we've got a facilities plan. It's not a blueprint. We didn't choose carpets. It's a concept. It's an evaluation of what is important to us in making decisions. But let me tell you a couple things that we do know. We do know that driving the Columbus changes will be that livestock facilities process. That is the most important thing for us to start with. And we need to, as I said earlier, pivot away from Don Scott with a lot of those operations. There's still, this is our choice. There still is a clear use for Don Scott that will be very, very important to us. But we need to bring that teaching capacity close to our students and use the livestock components as part of developing Waterman. There are incredible urban agriculture opportunities there. We're a leader nationally in urban agriculture and food security questions, and we have the opportunity to do work here in one of the nation's only urban located colleges of ag that also has land base that we can develop. There are great opportunities. We've got the Schiermeyer Wetlands Center up on the Olentangy. We've got folks studying the Olentangy Dam removal. And we've got 2 urban stream corridors that run through Waterman. And so there's an incredible learning and discovery opportunity there as well. And so that will really drive new ideas. We will be proactive in talking about what needs to happen in those discovery-themed buildings. We have ideas about things we would propose move very naturally from our college into the first of those buildings. Those will be done in partnerships with multiple colleges because that's the essence of the discovery themes. But we will be not only engaged, but to be a leader. And then here on the Columbus campus, there's what we're calling the bridge strategy. It doesn't mean these bridges, although the bridges now become a very important part of our main street. Lots of this stuff will not happen tomorrow. It will not happen next year. It will not happen in 10 years. And so if we're going to meet our aspirations, we are going to need the best facilities possible. So we have nearly a $20 million investment going into Cotman Hall to bring it up to operational standards. We're investing in a new student success center. You see the south end of Ag Admin where the library used to be. I went back in the library, got here, and the $5 bill I'd stuck in that one journal was still there from when I left in 75, 76. Just kidding, some student had found it. The fact is that on this side of the river, we did not have modern student-centered facilities, and that Student Success Center will offer that to our students. You know, it's not fair to ask the best and brightest students to come and study with us and not let them have access to the kind of facilities that are required for their success. We are building an administrative suite as part of that project. When I began to assemble my administrative team and discovered we were in 5 different floors of 3 different buildings, we began to look at renovation costs and discovered it was actually cheaper to build it all in one suite than it was to renovate individual offices. So we're trying to look at this from both an efficiency and an economics perspective. We just got permission to actually, at university expense, put a new roof on the Ag Engineering building. We're just going to patch it because we're going to be out here in 2 years. Really? Really looks like a basketball arena to me. You know, so this planning process has done remarkable things. It has actually re-educated people within the university about the reality of our transition. It's not only laid out a pathway that they can understand and appreciate, but they also understand how we get there and how they have to partner with us in our success in getting there. So it's truly been transformational. At Worcester, some of you may know Thorne Hall, of my department, entomology. Lovely old building, unless you're sentenced to work there. It is not conducive to modern science. And so, what do you do with a building like that? Well, what we're going to do, and the state capital budget has actually started the process of helping us, is we're going to replace it. Selby Hall, over closer to the Fisher-Schistler complex, where plant pathology is located on the Worcester campus, was built to have an addition put on it. So we are going to begin the planning process of what that new building looks like. And yes, the primary driver will be entomology, the group that want to move out of an aged facility. But as with all of our new buildings, that planning process is going to be comprehensive. We're going to say entomology needs to come here, but they have incredible partnerships with plant pathology and with Horton Crop Sciences and with the School of Environment and Natural Resources. Maybe we should look a little more holistically and say, while we're building a building for the future of entomology, what about the collaborations that we have already in place and anticipate will increase these other disciplines? We will never plan another building that does not consider the opportunity to bring in the private sector. What an incredible way to build partnerships with people who have research and development money and hire our students. To have somebody from a private business able to come into an office and a lab, do collaborative research, kids get out of class and they go down and have their research experience where faculty are working with private industry. You know, that's better than an internship, making those connections. And at Worcester, where we've largely had a research campus and a teaching campus, one of the things that was revealed to us in our facilities analysis and master plan is that Halderman and SCO, the 2 buildings we rely on the ATI part of the campus for our teaching, are essentially falling down on themselves. Literally, the second-story skin is slowly sliding down onto the first story. It's a long story about things that happened 40 years ago, but the fact remains, we don't have a solid estimate. We probably a $10 million process just to do the outside, and that doesn't even touch the labs and offices inside. And so as we plan a new facility, a new building on the Worcester campus, let's not only talk about entomology, the partnerships they have with other disciplines, the opportunity to bring in the private sector, let's talk about truly creating an academic. You know, what if the first floor of that building were teaching laboratories and we pivot our students who are living right there between the 2 parts of campus, actually a little closer to Selby than they are to Halderman. We could pivot and have their teaching there. Lots of things to think about, but it represents, one, something we're doing. We're doing this. This planning is starting. And two, a different way of thinking about how we solve this problem. So I'm really excited about this. You might be able to tell that. Almost done here. Challenge begets opportunity. First weekend of August, Toledo's water shut down for 2 days. Now, this is not news to us. I mean, we've been dealing with nutrient management issues and water quality for decades. And in fact, we have done some very, very impactful research that has led to very impactful outreach that has actually had positive impact on the problems. But tell that to a young couple who woke up on Saturday and couldn't run a glass of water for their kids. They don't really care at that point how complicated this is. They don't care, really, all the steps and all the years that have to go into an answer to that problem. And so, many of you heard me say this at Farm Science Review. We stood up the Field to Faucet initiative, investing $1 million in this initiative. What we're doing is we're incentivizing people to come together from across the university to look at system answers to these problems, literally from the field and the agronomic practices we use all the way through to the tap. And it's been amazing over the past month and a half the degree of interest that this has engendered across campus. People truly coming together. Professor of Food, Ag, and Biological Engineering, Jay Martin, will take leadership of this initiative, but it will be interdisciplinary and collaborative across the university. But also, we've reached out to all of the other Ohio colleges and universities in water because they need to be part of this. We've brought in Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue, and Penn State who have similar expertise and problems to be part of these conversations. 2 weeks from now, a number of us will gather with Chancellor King at the Board of Regents to talk about the government's investment dollars in research and development on this problem of algal blooms and water quality. And so it truly represents the best of what an engaged university can do. That with a little bit of incentivization, we can bring together thinking that will really revolutionize how we solve these problems. And so I look forward to being able to continue to report out. $1 million is not enough. $3 million is not enough. We've actually set a fundraising goal of $25 million to support this endeavor, with money going into research that is actually guided by the donors, the industries that we think will support this initiative, money that goes into not just spending on research and development for today, but endowing funds that continue to support research and development in the future, and money that will focus on youth education. Because what we need each step of the way to ensure that while we're solving problems for today, we're also preparing the next generation to understand the problem from day one. So how do we, I've asked our 4-H folks to actually put together a concept that engages all of our community clubs across the state next year in the issue of water quality. At Farm Science Review on Wednesday this year, we had 102 school buses. We're about 100 FF chapters from around the state. What if we went through our agriculture education program and talked to the teacher community in agriculture across the state and challenged them to a contest? And they come next year to Farm Science Review on Wednesday, and maybe instead of 100, there are 200 buses. We have agency personnel and industry personnel judge their entrepreneurial ideas about what we might do with water and offer a few prizes. And oh, by the way, the selfish thing is we make them go through our academic programs building while they're there. There's always an angle. But how do you blend these things? Just all sorts of opportunities. I mentioned the discovery themes and talking about buildings, but just a word about this. You've been hearing me talk about discovery themes for 2 years, just like ATI change, just like extension futuring, just like facilities opportunities. Now is the time. The university has chosen their investment portfolio. The number one choice, first out of the chute, data analytics. Data analytics? Oh, wait a second. How many of you used a GPS to get to Columbus? Data. How many of you worry about, who's watching your phone calls? Data. Think about the health system. Data. It's run by data. And in fact, agriculture is now run by data. And we have just the right people at just the right time to actually make a big play to be an important part of how agricultural data are used to benefit both the private sector and the actual owners and generators of those data, the producers that are our stakeholders. This is an opportunity for how extension for the future could be very relevant in a world where large companies manage a lot of the decision making and advice. And so we should be able to take advantage of the data analytics discovery theme to, among other things, invest in people who have that capacity to help us manage the big data sets that are out there. The university's invested in Food for Improved Health, and they've chosen 2 projects, one in something called personalized metabolomics. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? Actually, it's a great concept. This is really fascinating. We know and have been working for some time on the notion that your food, while for some of us, my nurse for my biometric thing said I had 2 choices. I could exercise or grow taller. I'm working on the taller because my doctor said my mouth was not exercise and I should not pretend that it was. The fact is that food can be a challenge for us, but we also know food can be healthful. Food can help cure disease. It can help prevent disease. And the trick is understanding what each of us, with all of our genes and the way those genes interact with the environment, actually do to react to those various foods. And so this project that has been funded will focus on that area. A second Food for Improved Health project, the investment is in climate resilient agriculture, looking at food systems that adapt to the future. Both of these initiatives are across the university, led out of this college. The university is invested in materials for a sustainable world. One is focused on materials. There will be a day, folks, when things like ethanol or biodiesel are the low-value product of the biorefinery that is the plant, that will actually be getting higher level value out of those sources, and fuels will be the low-value byproduct. We need to be preparing for that future. And so we have faculty who are playing in that discovery theme, led out of the College of Engineering. The other materials focus is on the sustainability of alternative materials, and particularly biomaterials, and that is being led out of our college and has great opportunity to grow into a broader sustainability initiative across the university. And then finally, proposals were selected in emerging and re-emerging diseases. Golly, emerald ash borer, Ebola, huge issues, from one end of the spectrum to the other. And agriculture is square in the middle. So we have people playing in this initiative that's led out of the College of Veterinary Medicine and the College of Medicine. So incredible opportunities. It will result in a growth in faculty within the college over the next 4 to 5 years. It will result in more ideas, new approaches, new disciplines, new connections, new funding opportunities, new student programs. And this is, I would argue, one of our single best opportunities to continue on the pathway of diversifying our faculty. So there are just win after win after win for our engagement in the discovery process. Not just engagement, folks, but the leadership of the Discovery Themes process. It is truly an exceptional opportunity. All right. If you wander across the road to Waterman, here's the vista you'll see looking down at the skyline. Actually, pretty nice vista. A lot of interest in that vista, which is why I would argue we need to be proactive and aggressive in saying our interests come first. This is what we're going to do, and we need to do this to lead the world to a better resolution. We're a unique institution. We're an internationally recognized college of agriculture in a key food state, from production to processing to distribution. We're one of the major colleges of agriculture that's actually both urban located and has urban assets, such as the nearly 300 acres in Upper Arlington that we call the Waterman Farm. 1 in 7 jobs in Ohio are agricultural jobs. Pretty important from that perspective. Equally important is the fact that last year, 1 in 6 Ohioans didn't know where their food was coming from at some time during the year. That's an extraordinarily incongruous comparison. One of the world's richest agricultural economies with one of the nation's most food insecure populations. 1 in 4 young people in Ohio last year lived in a household where they did not know where their food was coming from. That's on us to understand and fix. We can do it. We can do that. Big challenge, but we can do it. We live in a state where we have the luxury of the rural-urban interface, balance between those environments. We have the balance of production of commodities and products, but also protection of the environment, attention to the fact that we want quality of life and we need those other amenities. We have the challenges that are provided from our food based on life choices. Don't exercise enough, eat a little too much. Boy, those desserts were good last night. Although I didn't get the Brutus, what was it? Smoky Brutus, yeah. Don't ask. If you weren't there, I can't even begin to describe it. But we also, while we have those challenges, we have the opportunities for food to be part of a healthful life. We're one of the few colleges in the nation in the ag science that is surrounded by this kind of comprehensive university, and that is a huge competitive advantage for us, that we have these other disciplines that are represented by the other colleges at Ohio State. We're one of the few colleges of ag that, in addition to 4-year training and graduate training, have 2-year training opportunities. That's an incredibly important competitive advantage. So opportunities abound. How will we address them? Okay, innovative thinking. We have to be innovators. We have to prioritize our efforts. Lots of ideas. We've got to actually put them in an order. We've got to say, here's where we're going. We have to remain connected with the world outside our walls. That's why the advisory committees are here. That's why we rely in 88 counties, in all the communities in Ohio. We rely on that connection with our local employees and the people that need the products that we produce. We have to focus on world-class education, and that's in the classroom and outside the classroom. We will become the place where people turn aspirationally in outreach and engagement in our OSU extension operations. We will, by connecting ATI more thoroughly into our undergraduate portfolio, be a model for how you offer choice and access in undergraduate education. We have to focus on creativity and innovative research, and the discovery themes are a great boost, but they're not the only thing. We're surrounded by creative faculty, and we need to find ways to continue to encourage them. We need to be operationally efficient. More than I can cover today, but in the last 18 months, we have changed in the college the way we do fiscal, HR, IT, communications, and external fundraising. We have 5 new department leaders, academic leaders, all of whom we've grown ourselves. They're all internally appointed. We're raising the future leaders that we want by professional development that we're doing inside. We're doing a lot of really good things. We need modern learning environments. We don't just need them, we deserve them. We have the programs that demand that we have 22nd century learning environments. And we need to be aggressive, not just in carrying our torch internally. This college needs to be seen as the campus leader in terms of academic colleges, and I think we have that capacity. So it's an ambitious agenda, but I think it's an agenda worth pursuing. We've talked for a year. We're now moving to action over the next year. I hope next year when you check back, we've got a list of things that are underway and accomplished. I anticipate that we will. This happens on the backs of our faculty, staff, and students. They're a fundamental part of this. In fact, it doesn't get done out of my office. It gets done out of the time they invest in their own future. It gets done by you helping us with ideas and other resources. And so as we look to the future of the college, I think we can safely say, what is it the president always says, whichever president it is, the state of the college is sound. We're on the cusp. In many ways, we're at a tipping point of starting very aggressive and I think really important new directions. And so at the risk of having held you over after class, I felt it was really important to take this opportunity to share some of this with you so that you've got a sense of what your college, this is my college, but this is more importantly your college, whether you're somebody who gets a paycheck from us, somebody who graduated from here, or someone who simply has fallen in love with the opportunities that we present for solving some of the world's most fundamental challenges. Thanks for joining us here today and look forward to conversations later. I'll leave it to all of you to decide whether you have the energy to ask any further questions, but certainly we have that opportunity. I'll tell you, just like last night when I was the last speaker before dessert, this is your break time that I've impinged upon here. But thank you for joining us today, and to the folks around the state who've joined by YouTube, great to have you. We're back at it, folks, in the college next third Friday of the month, 1 to 2, my regularly scheduled webinar.